Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
Quite often, it feels that the Star Wars community and fandom stands pretty opposite or opposed from one another. We're always at each other's throats for one reason or another. Always arguing or disagreeing with one another for something or, another reason within Star Wars, of course. That's just part of it, though. That's just part of being a Star Wars fan. But I think that we can all agree with this, setting aside our differences and opinions on the overall Star Wars franchise for now, and agree that the Star Wars franchise definitely does not need to be rebooted. That's exactly what we are going to be discussing in this video from StarWarsNews.net. I'll have their article linked in the description down below. Director Matthew Vaughn shares his hot Star Wars take and his ideas for a potential reboot for the Star Wars franchise. Matthew Vaughn, director of the Kingsman movies, shared on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast what he would do with the Star Wars franchise, about the state of the Hollywood industry right now, and also with these Hollywood blockbusters of the franchise. His comments, interestingly, coincide with rumors years ago that the director Vaughn was in talks to actually direct his own Star Wars film, possibly even Episode 7, The Force Awakens. While Star Wars wasn't the center of the overall conversation, though, it did, get brought up here and there. It did come up when asked about his ideas for other big franchises, not just with Star Wars, but maybe also with Marvel. Matthew Vaughn commented how he would like to reboot the Star Wars franchise, likening his ideas to the James Bond films or various other superhero movies as well, where other creatives put their spin on familiar stories, saying that, in quote, "For me, doing a Star Wars movie is to play with the characters I love. If they said to me they'd reboot Star Wars and actually have Luke Skywalker, Solo, and Vader do your version of it, everyone would say you're an idiot to try, but that would excite me, if for anything." Ending that quote right there. Matthew Vaughn furthered his comment on the state of the overall Star Wars franchise and how he feels the series is now putting a focus on the wrong things, expressing a need for a new film, saying that, in quote, "Why are the Star Wars characters so hollowed that from 1977 you can't redo it for a new audience? Star Wars is the Skywalker family, and that's where I think that they've gone wrong. They've forgot. They've done brilliantly in the TV, but it needs an epic new film. That's what I would do. Everyone is going to go batshit crazy, but let's bring it on. If you want a new generation, make the movie for them. The old generation, hopefully, you can make it well enough that they'd enjoy it too." Ending that quote right there. Matthew Vaughn, they just did that with The Force Awakens and the sequel trilogy, unless you've been, living underneath a rock. No, yeah, though, seriously, no disrespect really, but that's pretty much what the sequel trilogy is to a point, is a kind of a semi-reboot continuation of the Star Wars franchise, re-bringing it alive, sparking it back alive. I really feel with new movies as well, especially for a new generation, kind of re-hindering that same copy and paste method. Like, it's pretty generically the same to the original trilogy in very many aspects here and there. We could talk about that all day, but that's like a whole nother video. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing at the same time as well. Many people hinder that the sequel trilogy and its overall basis storyline is a direct copy and paste of what the original trilogy is, considering that bad. I don't really believe that to be all that bad, if for anything, but seeing here what Matthew Vaughn stated here, saying that a new film is a need for the Star Wars films here, a new reboot, essentially. That's kind of what the sequels are, if for anything. Now, yes, I do agree with the fact that they need to get a new film out for the Star Wars franchise. I don't necessarily agree with the idea that they need to have it focused on the Skywalkers and, the Skywalker saga and everything like that. Like, that was kind of also the point with the sequel trilogy, is kind of bringing that all to a close at that point. Then again, we are going to get like that actual, I feel like, conclusion with episode 10, that there being the Rey Skywalker focused movie that was announced at the beginning of this year. That movie is going to be directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. It's going to pick up 15 years after the events of the last movie, The Rise of Skywalker, and I feel that that movie is really going to bring full closure and conclusion to the Skywalker saga. But that's something to discuss a little bit later on in a a separate video here on the channel. All the more reason to grab that subscribe button if you haven't already. I also like the idea of that he's like very punctual on like they've been killing it with TV, with the Mandoverse, Mandalorian and everything, of course, but it does to a point kind of get old. Not that that's bad. It's not to the point of like the Marvel shows, not that those are bad either. If you're a Marvel fan, I have a Marvel channel linked in the description down below as well, but it can get oversaturated, I think is what he's trying to get at. So a new movie to kind of shuffle things up, before continuing on more and more here with more shows and on Disney Plus, of course, as well. It's something that's kind of needed, it feels like, almost. So while the director Matthew Vaughn is currently making the rounds for his new film Argyle out early next year, 2024, it should be noted that the director Vaughn was likely in talks to direct a previous Star Wars film as well, as I had mentioned. Back in 2012, nearly over 10 years ago, Matthew Vaughn was rumored around to be one of the directors for Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Not long after, though, comic book creator and collaborator Mark Miller tweeted about Matthew Vaughn's possible potential Star Wars involvement back in the day. However, both are regulated to be the rumor mill and were never actually confirmed. As we later saw pan out, it was J.J. Abrams who took the spot. Lastly, Matthew Vaughn also shared his thoughts about the current state of Hollywood and how the focus of making profits has now become the main driving force, money at the end of the day. He emphasized on how creativity should be the main driving force versus the commerce of, money and everything like that, and I've been preaching that here on the channel for quite some time. More creativity being a driving factor and force is something I would love to see return back to the, Hollywood industry a little bit more, especially with such beloved major franchises like Star Wars. That's not to say that they've dropped the ball with Star Wars and that they've just been milking it for cash, of course. There's definitely a creative driving force behind that, and that's something I love. He says that in quote, "The studios, it's like any artistic form. The music business, movies, fashion, the financing and the commerce has taken over the creative aspects. That always means eventually, for short-term gains, you do well, but long-term, you kill everything. That's what's happening now. Film, music, arts. Commerce has taken over, and now the podium is starting to swing back. Creativity should always be the driving force of any decision, and then you think about how to make money out of it afterwards. If you try to make money up front, you'll kill some great franchises out there." Ending that quote right there. Matthew Vaughn, you are speaking of the people. I'm not going to lie. When I started this article, I wasn't necessarily in favor of it. Like you're saying, like, oh, we got to reboot Star Wars. I get what you're saying, and I agree with that, guys. Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. What do you guys think about the future of Star Wars? What do you want to see with the future of Star Wars? I would love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions and theories in the comment section down below, guys. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Of course, this has been an official Star Wars. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great one. May the Force be with you as always. Peace out.